You are frozen. Up. I'm not frozen. You're not frozen anymore.
You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode 122, we're gonna go around the world of Overwatch, updating you on, some new merchandise. We had a pretty big event this past weekend called, the first finals. We'll talk a little bit about numbers, all of that good stuff. We'll also talk about some of the things that actually happened that really weren't part of the actual match, which caused a bit of a frenzy based on some reactions and whatnot. But we're definitely going to talk about everything going on in Contenders, as a lot of the regions are wrapping up their last week of the group stage, and we got some shakeups that we definitely need to talk about that we kind of alluded to in the prior week, and of course, we will break down the games that happened between the London Spitfire and the Philadelphia Fusion. But before we can get into that, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out in our Twitch chat tonight for our live show, and of course, thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So, joining me tonight, as you can see, is my co-host, Edinar. And Ed, it's been a pretty big week. You know, we got the grand finals. Those have come and gone. Like, now if you go in the game, there are no upcoming games in the Overwatch League tab, and it's a little disheartening, but, we got the All-Star game coming up, we got the World Cup, obviously we got Contenders playoffs, so there's still quite a bit of Overwatch esports going on, and hopefully, some of our viewers and listeners will check some of the other esports out in the meantime.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on this past week. I know a lot of the other podcasters and community people were out in New York, not us. We were back here getting all hunkered down for a nice long night of Overwatch. That lasted like an hour and a half. and then, it was fun. It was still good. Production value was amazing. It was just nice to see kind of everything come to fruition there towards the end. And, it was a lot of fun. I watched a lot of Overwatch in the past week, so I'm all jacked up. And then, like you said, there's nothing really coming out except we do have the All-Star weekend coming up. We do have, Contenders finishing up, which we'll talk about, which had some crazy things go on, sugar free, and and then we have a new possible event, not a new event, but the next event coming up here shortly. Hopefully, we haven't heard anything, but should be coming shortly. So yeah, it's going to be a busy, and you think it's like the off season for Overwatch, and it's just as busy.
Absolutely. So that being said, obviously with so much going on in esports, this particular episode is going to focus more so on that, because really outside of the Overwatch League this past week, it's been kind of a quiet week. We do have some new merchandise, which also includes, stuff for the first finals. You have London Championship gear available on the Blizzard Gear store, as well as the newest addition to the Nendoroid line, and Soldier 76 is the next figure to be released in that line. So you can currently go on the Blizzard Gear store, and you can get your pre-order, as those are available now. And the Soldier 76 Nendoroid is expected to ship in Q2 2019. So just like all the other Nendoroids, it costs $49.99. And, there's a ton of accessories with this. So, they have a detachable mask. You have, like, the Helix rockets, the Biotic Field. They also have a mask for the tactical visor, even the golf clubs, for the whole Dad 76 meme. But no Grillin set or anything like that. But that being said, I was pretty happy with this one. But like, I just wish the Nendoroid line was cheaper, because $50 is just a little bit too steep for me. They're cool, but I don't think they're $50 cool. But if you're a collector out there, this is another one for you guys to swoop in and get.
Yeah, it's not only the price. Like I agree with you. Like if these were not $49.99 or $50, I would probably get them. I can't justify $50 for this, especially when it's $50 and you'll get it in 8 months. Like, okay. I mean, I'm buying a toy for 2019. This seems interesting, but okay, we'll go with it. It's just, yeah, they're all super cool, but the price and how far you have to pre-order them in advance and all that fun stuff just kind of sways me away from them. But, this one looks really cool. I like the tactical visor that they have with them.
Absolutely. So, you kind of alluded to, Summer Games. That is, like, we don't know when it's going to drop. In the first year of release, it dropped on, like, August 2nd. And then last year, it dropped on, like, August 8th or August 9th. The toy is the newest Nendoroid, which is for Soldier 76. So that comes out next year. But you can pre-order now. But... we're expecting Summer Games to probably drop next Tuesday, so with that being said, we might see, some skin teasers or things like that in the upcoming days ahead. Most likely tomorrow, just based on how things have kind of been. But those aren't going to be the only skins to look forward to, because we also have some skins that will be released with the Overwatch League All-Star game. So these were actually announced during the Grand Final, so if you tuned in, you probably already know about this. But they are adding 2 new legendary skins for the All-Star event. So we have a new Genji skin, which is, kind of like a fiery type theme, which would be representing the Pacific. And then Tracer has more of a, like, icy theme going on with her skin, which would cover the Atlantic team. So just as a reminder, the All-Star game is later in the month. That will be August 25th and 26th. The 25th is, like, the wacky, like, custom games. And the 26th is when the actual All-Star game is. So for the actual All-Star game, this is going to be a 5-map series where every player on both rosters have to participate in at least 1 map. So you'll get to see all of your favorite players, except for, the Grand Finals MVP, because he didn't make the cut. It's worth noting, like, a lot of people aren't too happy about that. But regardless, like, there's no word on whether or not Blizzard plans on releasing more All-Star skins, but, like, the biggest question mark is, well, are these going to be rewards for watching the Twitch stream, or are these going to be bought via currency? Because, like, there's a chance, like, that the Summer Games might be going on during these 2 days, so, like, that leads me to believe, like, it's more likely to be involved in just watching the Twitch stream, or maybe the event ends before it, and then it's just bought with currency. One way or another, I'm going to get both. But I'm hoping they don't go the currency route for these two, just to, draw more people into the Twitch stream, so we can see that viewership that we want to see.
Yeah, no, like, I'm leaning more towards viewership for this as well. Just because, I mean, they wouldn't call them, more than likely there will be an event going on during the All-Star game. And they wouldn't advertise them as All-Star skins if they were part of the event or anything like that. Except you got the names wrong. So it's Let It Go Tracer and Smiley McDragon Face Genji.
Right.
Because he looks like a smiling dragon. I'm sorry, he does. I can't unsee it now. So those are forever their names in my book. But I do like them. Although I will never use the Genji one because I don't ever play Genji. So,
Hey, arcade mode, okay?
Okay, arcade
random
mode
heroes.
I'll use. All right, arcade mode, random, mystery heroes. Yes, I will use Genji when forced to. But yeah, no, I think these will be part of Twitch viewership. Just another way to push people to watch it, because it's not like it's going to draw the normal viewership, because it's not an actual Overwatch League. It's a fun game and stuff like that. So it's an incentive to get more viewers in there.
Well, I mean, like, some people are saying, like, it was Atlantis themed for the Tracer one. It's not necessarily a crossover from Frozen. But that's just what Ed thinks about that one. But yeah, hopefully, like, I don't think we're gonna get more than these 2 skins, just because, you know, you have one representing each team, and, you know, with another event going on, we're gonna have a lot to already collect, with that. So, let's go ahead, let's move on to some of the stuff that the community is really getting hyped up about, and we gotta talk about a certain play that happened in Overwatch Contenders Europe. So, you know, every once in a while, when it comes to Overwatch esports, we see things that are a little bit out of the ordinary, right? We see some unconventional strategies being used. Like, for instance, you know, like during the Overwatch League playoffs, we saw the whole merry-go-round strat, when the Gladiators just completely bamboozled the London Spitfire, and then the Spitfire would later go on to use a similar strat in the Grand Finals, which we'll talk about later. But in the Orclus and Hungary versus British Hurricane match, they were on Ilios. They were playing on Well, and this was the 5th map in this series. And Orclus basically came out with a Bastion. And, you know, they had an interesting tactic. So basically, what happens is, okay, so they're on Well. They had Caspier, who was on the Bastion, and he uses his ult to rocket jump to the high ground. So, you know, he's looking across the way from the pit where the windmill is, whatever the heck that thing is. And he basically, like, boosts himself up with the rockets 3 times to get himself on the highest point that he can get. And he just ends up laying waste to everyone. And the Hurricane just aren't able to dislodge the Bastion from that spot, because, yes, they're able to dive the high ground, but he's still, like, around the corner in a spot that they really can't get to him. And since they already dove the high ground, well, they have to wait on cooldowns anyway, and then just all of the cleanup is there, both the fight on the ground as well as Caspier just, you know, picking up a couple of kills. And that's really what secured the series, and yeah, it also was the final nail in the coffin for the British Hurricane, which we'll kind of talk about. But yeah, not looking too good for the Hurricane after they had won Contenders this past season. But I love seeing stuff like this. No, you don't really expect the Bastion, so.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when you first see it, it's one of those. It's kind of like the Great Bamboozle by the Gladiators. Like, you can pull it off once. You're not going to be able to pull it off twice. So make it count. Like, I was like, I watched this and I was like, wait, don't they have a Pharah to, you know, boop them? Like, get them off the high ground? Like, I feel that would be easy. And it's just like, they were probably just so flustered from all of it that they just didn't know how to handle it. And that's, I mean, clearly what happened. And, you know, the great London, you know, hurricane tragic, you know, storm of a season, you know, came to an end by goddamn Bastion on the high ground. So yeah, I mean, yeah, nobody could like D.Va, Winston tried to get up. Nope, nothing's getting up there. And yeah, like he didn't kill a lot of people. He just
I think he got like
caused an uproar.
He had a DMEC on the D.Va, and I think he killed the pilot D.Va. But like all the cleanup was for everyone else though. But you know he'd already pulled 3 up on the high ground at that point already.
Yeah, he was basically there as a massive distraction, and allowed his team to steamroll over. It was great. I loved it. I love those kind of plays. I mean, think of all the cheeky Symmetra plays we're gonna start seeing.
Well, that would also require Symmetra not to be, you know, 25 to 30% damage below all the other DPS in the game.
Well, you could pull off some cheeky shit with Symmetra. It's gonna happen sooner or later. Somebody's gonna be like, "Okay, we're going in with Symmetra," and then they're gonna actually do something, and then they're gonna be like, "Yep, that's never gonna happen again."
I'll wait to see if that ever happens. I think it will. But I don't know what it is, but it like this always seems to happen to the London organization, because it happened to them against the Gladiators, and now it happened to their academy team. So I don't know if they're just more susceptible to these outside the box strategies or what, but I just thought that was pretty interesting. But moving on, we got to talk about some of the stuff that happened during the first final. So I want to talk about Golden Boy for a minute. Who, if you didn't tune in, he was hosting the first finals, and I remember like he was streaming after the finals were over. I think it was like a day after, and he was like watching the replay back, and Golden Boy got like just overcome with emotion on his stream as he was watching it play back, because he was basically like acknowledging just the enormity of just how far he has come, because hosting an event as big as the Overwatch League on ESPN of all places was something that he had always wanted, and like that was his dream. And now he's basically like hoping that that's going to be influence for someone else from the hood to strive for chasing that dream. But like, it definitely touched my heart watching that stream highlight, and it's been like all over the competitive Overwatch Reddit. But yeah, I mean, what can't you say about Golden Boy? I mean, he is the ultimate hype man. His T-Mobile shills, during the World Cup last year, were those of legend.
No, he did the T-Mobile shill during the Overwatch World the finals too. He snuck that in there while they were waiting for So.
Yeah, some things never really change, but definitely someone that wears his emotions on the sleeves, and I couldn't be happier that he was given that opportunity, and he definitely made the most of it. Like his presence on screen is just, it's astronomical, really.
Oh yeah, just watching him, like, I bold statement here, Cotton. Golden Boy was probably one of the top 3 things about the entire Grand Finals. For me, like, seeing him come out, he was the perfect type person to come out. Perfect person to be out there and be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to pump up the crowd. And he did exactly that. After what we'll talk about next, did not really pump up the crowd. So, yeah, it was one of those things where seeing him was such like a feel-good moment, and seeing him react to it was such a feel-good moment. And when it was going on, you could sense like how into it he actually was, and like how much emotion he had behind what he was saying, that it made you believe that it was that amazing of a time. So yeah, no, it was perfect. It was just perfect.
So we go from one end of the spectrum, which was absolutely amazing, to what the heck am I watching? Why is this on TV? And that was the performance. I had to air quote it because I don't know if you could actually call it that, by DJ Khaled. Yeah, so obviously the first finals brought on a lot of memorable moments, some of them not always for the best reason. So, DJ Khaled was like supposed to be the hype man, kicking things off on Saturday with a musical performance, and, he did his best to hype up the crowd. He tried to get them to, kind of like sing along to, some of the songs, and the crowd just was not having it. And then I remember at one point the camera panned out to the crowd, and there was a young fan in the audience who was dressed up as the Summer Skin McCree, the lifeguard one. Mm-hmm. And the look on his face was just that of bewilderment, and I 100% agree. Like, when I watched this, I was like, this is so bad. Like, I can't even watch this. I actually had to browse Twitter to see what was going on, to see how everyone else was reacting to what was happening on stream and, on ESPN. And to no surprise, everyone was just not having it. Or some people are like, this is amazing, if only because it's so terrible. But, like, for me, it was just so bad it couldn't be entertaining. And, we saw DJ Khaled try to, show off some of his dance moves, which was just kind of like drunken stumbling is the best way to put it. But, man, like, I remember... So, like, he tries to get the crowd to sing along, and here's one of the problems. In that genre of music that he traditionally does with the DJing, a lot of that had to be censored due to the fact that, it was on national television, so, that kind of affects the songs too, but not a lot of the crowd was really behind the songs that were being played, and I remember distinctively at one point they started to play one of Drake's newer songs, and I tweeted out, okay, this is gonna be like the only song that the audience is possibly going to know.
He played the All I Do Is Win,
which
I think is probably his most popular song. People knew that one, except he didn't actually sing it.
Mm-hmm.
He made the crowd sing the whole thing, and I'm like, you are a lazy performer. So there's a couple takeaways I got from this. Is one, after every time he talked, he was looking like he was looking into the upper deck for something. Like, you can even see it, like, on the article here. It's like you can see him. He's just staring up into the upper deck for no reason whatsoever. And I don't know if you knew this, Totem, but he has a new album on iTunes.
That's number one.
That's number one.
And you know what? It's because of you. It's because of you.
And to top it off, did you know he's on tour with Jay-Z and Beyonce?
That I did not know.
He only mentioned that like 4 or 5 times. So, it was easy to miss between the iTunes shilling. I mean, he's a big performer. Any other crowd, this would have been just so much better. It was the wrong fucking crowd. Like, it was a horrible crowd for him to be there. Like, if you would have, oh God, like, at his normal concert, he even probably realizes it now. He's like, this is not normal. Like, this is not how I normally perform, because nobody's singing along, nobody's like getting into it, and people are like, what is happening? But it's good exposure for him, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I can't blame him at all. It was just the wrong crowd. And it was so funny. You're just like, oh, this is brutal to watch. I don't know if you saw the picture or the video of the people sitting behind all the OWL players that were there, like Custa, Sinatra, Swoosh. They were all there, and like the people behind them were like took video of the players during the concert, and like Custa was just standing there perfectly still, like, what do I do? Do I dance? Do I just kind of stand here looking awkward? And he chose to stand there looking awkward. So, but I have a sneaking suspicion DJ Khaled is not going to be invited back for next year's grand finals.
Probably not. And, it is worth saying, like, we kind of go through the same thing at BlizzCon every year whenever they announce who's going to be part of the closing ceremony, because it's very hard to appeal to such a wide audience, really, because everyone has different tastes. But yeah, this definitely came off as more cringe and befuddlement than anything else. But luckily, it was over eventually, so, like, it felt like 10 years, but that's besides the point. But anyways.
It did seem to take a long, long time.
Right, so, hopefully next year, maybe they whittle down the time just a little bit, or get someone that's more, well, I don't want to say, like, more universally known, just more, maybe they should just invite someone that they already had at BlizzCon, and that would have been a safer route. Because at least then they would have known what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah, I mean, the safe route in this kind of situation
is have a Lucio cosplayer DJing.
Or any form of rock. Like, rock seems to be, like, the safe bet. Like when you get rap, you get people who don't realize it, like understand it. You could do EDM, but like EDM is not that. I mean, it's maybe popular with this specific crowd, but it's not ESPN popular. Mm-hmm. So rock is kind of like a middle ground for all of that. Like I never agreed at BlizzCon when they got Metallica to play,
right?
But Metallica is rock. Like people aren't going to be like, people may not like Metallica, but they're not going to be like, oh, screw this. Like, this is the worst choice possible. Like, you would getting, like, DJ Khaled to perform at BlizzCon. Like, so I feel like they could get, like, the perfect band they could have gotten, but they're too big for them, is Imagine Dragons. Mm-hmm. Like, if they could have gotten Imagine Dragons, I think that would have been, like, primo, like the best choice they could have made. So next year
or BlizzCon.
I don't know if they can. They want to go Imagine Dragons for BlizzCon.
You never know. But anyways,
maybe Imagine Dragons cover band.
No, I don't think we'll go with cover bands. But anyways, let's move on. Let's talk about what's going on both in Contenders and Overwatch League, as it's been a pretty hectic week. So, Edinar, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know what's been going down with the affiliated teams in Contenders?
Okay. All right, well, for starters, start with NA. XL2 Academy defeated Toronto Esports, the Boston Uprising team, 3-1. Team Envy, the Fuel team, defeated NRG Esports, the Shock team, 3-1. Fusion University. Oh my god. Fusion University.
The band?
Yeah. Won against GG Esports Academy, the Outlaws team, 4-0. The story of this is not that Fusion won for like the 40th time in a row. It's that loss knocked GG Esports Academy out of automatic Contenders contention for season 2. And then next up you had Legion versus Second Win. And then you had Sugar Free. Last night's leftovers defeat the Florida Mayhem team, Mayhem Academy, 3-1. It was Sugar Free. And then Orgulous and Hungry, the Bastion team, defeated the British shit show Hurricane, 3-2, knocking them out of Contenders for next year. And then Team CC, the Shanghai Dragons team, defeated LGD Gaming 3-2 in China. So, the two main things out of all of this is the Hurricane, who finished 1-4, and GG Esports Academy, the Outlaw team, finished 2-3. Both are knocked out of automatic Contenders, automatically qualifying for season 3 Contenders, and they're going to be in trials. So, they do, I told you this beforehand. More than likely, changes are going to be coming. For every single one of these Contenders teams that is affiliated is going to be completely different next season. Mm-hmm. Because people are going to get signed, so on and so forth, which we'll talk about in a little bit about the signing. But I can't imagine British Hurricane and GG Esports Academy not making it into Contenders. I just can't see that happening. It's interesting. I'm super happy that, on one end you had these two teams that are affiliated get knocked out, but by getting them knocked out, and this is less on the Hurricane side because Hurricane's the only affiliate team in EU, but on the NA side, GG Esports Academy getting knocked out means a non-affiliated team actually is making the playoffs. And that to me is a bigger deal because it gives people more hope.
Right.
It gives people hope, okay, this is not rigged for all these affiliate teams to just dominate. Look at, last night's leftovers. Sugar Free. He's going to get signed by someone. Guaranteed. But you have last night's leftovers making it over GG Esports Academy, and it's there's hope there. So I like it. It was interesting. The Hurricane though, first to worst.
Yeah, definitely. Losing Craggy was their undoing this season. But like talking about NA for a second, Fusion University for the second season in a row complete a perfect group stage, going 5-0. And in season one last year, it did not come easy. Their map record was pretty even, but this season, in those 20 games, it went 18-2. So this is a completely different looking team. And, Zachary has been firing on all cylinders on a plethora of characters. And it's making me more and more confident going into the World Cup that when we go up against Canada, Zachary's going to outduel Surefour. I'm looking forward to it.
I actually have a question about Zachary for you, and this seems like a crazy effing question to ask, but does Zachary replace Carpe?
Yeah, it's so hard to say because Carpe. Oh, okay, well, hold on. Here's the issue. When it comes to Carpe and the Fusion, Carpe has to do good in order for the Fusion to win. I don't know how the team dynamic would change without Carpe in the lineup, so it's really hard to say where exactly Zachary would fit into the equation. Like, I don't know if he would gel better or if his approach to the game would be different enough where the entire comp didn't have to revolve around one person performing really well. But there's a lot of teams out there that have really good players that, when you look at the Overwatch League team, I'll use New York Excelsior as an example. Here's a prime example.
Getting richer.
So on XL2 Academy, they have Nenny, who is an absolute god widow. But then you look at their Overwatch League team, they have Libero, they have Sibyulbi, they have Pine. They already have 3 Widowmaker players, so, what do you do with Nenny in that case? Does Nenny become a Tracer one-trick, but then you still have SBB? I don't know if they're going to try to trade away one of their current assets, or if they're going to use their younger talent as, trade bait. Because it's either one or the other. I find it very hard to believe that they would basically have, half of their lineup being of similar, hero pool. Because we've seen how much flexibility comes into play, and when they overlap so much, then it really starts to get, muddy. So, I don't know. I'm very confident that Zachary will get signed, but it's hard to see in the current landscape what the Fusion's plans are, because we saw, Carpe did not have a good performance in the first finals, which we'll talk about. As a matter of fact, he put up 2 of his worst games of the entire season in the first finals. So, Spitfire came in with the plan. They executed. Carpe was pressured a lot by Gesture. And, we look at what Zachary has done, and he hasn't seen the same amount of focus. But, I think right now, based off of what we've seen from FUN, they look like the better team.
They kind of do. God. See, and this is what I love and hate about contenders, is you get these teams like the Fusion University or XL2, and you're just like, okay, we have 2 new teams coming in, 2+ teams coming in. Fusion University, their entire team should be in Overwatch League. If somebody signed Fusion University, let's say one of the new cities signed Fusion University somehow to play for them, that'd be okay, they're going to be good next year. But no, they're all stuck behind their Overwatch League counterparts. So it's yes, they're building a really good farm system, essentially, but we're not going to see them. That just sucks. That's what sucks, especially since the Overwatch League players have do not have a long lifespan. Esports players don't have a long lifespan generally at all. Once they hit 26, 27, their careers are generally on a decline at that point. Now, there are outliers and stuff like that, but so you start getting these 18, 19-year-olds that are sitting for 2 years in contenders before they can get to the Overwatch League. You're missing out on some of their best years because Zachary's sitting behind Carpe, or every single player on XL2 is sitting behind all the best players in Overwatch League on the Excelsior team. You talk about Nene and Nanahana on XL2. Both of them are just all right, you're not going to get called up because you're going to be number 4 on the depth chart. Same with Mangachu and Wuhal and all these players from XL2 Academy. Just they're not going to replace people on XL2, but they're stuck in XL2's contenders team. So hopefully that kind of switches a little. But yeah, like you said, trade bait would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's going to be the route that teams are going to be going, because they're not going to be looking to find a full roster. They'll be looking at taking bits and pieces, whether it's a duo, a tank line or a support line or whatever, or even a DPS duo. I feel like they will take a duo initially, and then they will look to build around a specific line rather than just massively sign in a 4 to 6 stick and things like that.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me will be and I've said his name a couple times, but Sugar Free. So Sugar Free's what, 15? 16? I think he's 15.
I'm pretty sure he's 15 right now. See, that's the thing too, that information isn't always listed. But there's a lot of 15 and 16-year-old kids that are in contenders that have shown so much potential and promise that, it's just a matter of them staying the course.
Yeah, this is where XL2 and Fusion University and the better teams and contenders can really dominate. So you take Zachary, who, would come up, play part-time with Carpe, maybe play part-time with Carpe. Well, why not trade a team that signs, let's say, Sugar Free? They trade Sugar Free to Fusion University for Zachary. The new team gets to use Zachary right away, while Fusion University have a 15-year-old that has to stay in contenders for 3 more years. So you have that up-and-coming player to replace Carpe in 3 years or whatever, and you get something back in return for Zachary, and the other, both teams benefit from it, really.
Right.
So that's where teams like XL2 and Fusion University can really, really step up and get ahead of the game, is trading some of their best players for younger players so their contenders teams stay dominant, but don't push the Overwatch League team. So
absolutely. So in other contenders news, just an update on Korea. So the Korean playoffs are actually already underway. We've already seen 2 quarterfinal matches that went down. We have 2 more that are coming up at midnight Central Time, so later, late night tonight. But so far we have seen Kontu Panthera defeat GC Busan Wave. That one was 3-0, and I heard that there were a lot of tech issues in that specific match. We also saw Metabellum defeat last year's Cinderella team, O2 Orient. That one also ended 3-0. So tomorrow we have MVP Space going up against hashtag Forever Second Runaway. I'm pulling for Runaway. I hope they get it. MVP Space. I think they 4-0'd Element Mystic, and that's exactly what they needed to secure their spot. So I don't know what the heck went on in that series, but that was completely out of the blue. And then we have X6 Gaming, who had won it last season, going up against Element Mystic, who were unfortunately eliminated really early last season. So they've been looking pretty good, even without Sparkle in the lineup, so I'm pretty hyped for that series in particular. But we'll talk more about contenders and stuff on the back cap for sure, but we have to talk about expansion teams with the Overwatch League. So we were supposed to get an official announcement today. Hasn't happened, Maybe they're doing it out of spite for Slasher, or maybe they just didn't want us to announce it on the podcast. For whatever reason, we'll just go with what has been reported. So, we know that Activision Blizzard is finalizing agreements for 2 Overwatch League expansion slots. These organizations would represent Paris, France, and Guangzhou, China. So, the Paris slot would be the second slot sold in Europe. That would be owned by McCourt Global, who is an LA-based holding company that owns French soccer team Olympique de Marseille. And then Guangzhou is bought by the Nenkin Group, who is an umbrella company that's owned by some Chinese billionaire, and they also own a Chinese basketball team. So, Season 2 expansion slots, as we've talked about in the past, they're selling anywhere from like $30 million to $60 million, which was an increase over the $20 million buy-in for the inaugural season. And, for China, this is the second team, so, really, there is so much room for improvement over what Shanghai did that they possibly can't fail, right? Like, there's just no way we're getting to repeat.
The country of China is guaranteed at least 2 wins next season. Because I'm assuming they're going to play each other at least twice. So, the whole country of China can get 200% increase minimum in wins. That's how I look at it, because I'm a positive thinker. But I mean, these are the Paris was okay. Paris, we all kind of knew there's going to be an EU team. Paris makes a lot of sense. Paris and London are probably the 2 biggest cities in Europe. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but those 2 have to be in the top 3, 4. So it makes a lot of sense. The one in China is the one that's a little bit more, not baffling, but like more intriguing. Like, I could have actually seen them doing another, like, I knew they were going to put another team over in Asia. Mm-hmm. Like, it was a matter of, are they going to do it in Russia? Are they going to put another one in Korea? And they went with another one in China. And it's not like China can't, sustain 2 Overwatch League teams. They have a few people over there to cheer for them. But it's it will be nice. I still see next year, Season 3, having more teams over there, having at least 2 more teams over in Asia or, the Pacific, like an Australian team or something like that. But this is a good start, I can't wait for the casters to butcher their name, because they're going to screw up saying the name of the city so much, and it will be glorious. So, but yeah, no, this is great. I mean, more international exposure. Wait for the Paris team to trade for soon. He's like
reunite the baguettes.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, Paris baguettes. If they don't play baguette every map, they get kicked off the team. Then they trade for soon. Yeah, all is good in the world.
All right, well, that is not the only expansion team news that we got in the past week. As in other expansion slot news, Activision Blizzard has sold an Atlanta slot to a group funded by Georgia-based conglomerate Cox Enterprises, who just so happens to be where Slambo from Overwatch League Network works. And I don't know if you guys have been tuning in to OWLN, but Slambo's been kind of absent, right? Like, 3 weeks in a row. It makes you kind of wonder. Is he the GM? Could it be? All I know is, though, Atlanta is not Chicago.
Yes. I'm still, good for Atlanta.
Good for Andres and Slambo's company. But come on, man. We had a Chicago slot on the table for Season 1, but they couldn't find another team to make it an even number. You have to assume that that Chicago slot still has to be on the table, so what needs to happen? Like,
I mean, it's not even that. Even being Chicago, like me and you being so close to Chicago, you like basically in Chicago, me in Wisconsin, so I'm like an hour and a half away. It's the fact that Chicago is the third largest market in the United States.
mm-hmm.
It's how do you not have a team in the third largest market in the United States? You are losing fans and viewership by not including the third largest market in the world. Now, with that said, they still probably will have another team or two come in. Like, because I think they were saying they wanted, what, 4 to 6?
Yeah, we're more than likely. I would lean towards 6.
Yeah, if we have 6, we will get a Chicago team. If we have 4, we will not. Because I think 4 will be Toronto, could be another EU team, could be an Australian team. They could even go Brazilian. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they could go international again. But if we get 6, we're getting Chicago. And I'm holding out hope. But, you know, good for Atlanta. I mean, you got a cool airport. I'm trying to think of other things. And I can't really think of anything else. Yeah, you got a nice airport. We'll go with that.
I guess we'll just have to reach out to Andres from to Omnic Lab to know what else is good in the South other than cooking. So moving on, we got to talk about viewership numbers for the first finals. So the Overwatch League on ESPN Friday night drew a 0.18 rating. On Saturday, which was a re-air on ESPN2, they got a 0.05. Sunday afternoon, they had the recap on ABC. That one drew a 0.3. And then when we look at Twitch, at least for non-Chinese numbers, we peaked at 348,000 viewers during day 2 of the finals, with the estimated global average per minute audience, which includes like Twitch, the MLG site, all the China viewers, and the TV. The average was 861,000. Now, obviously China is included in that, so I wish we had the number without China, just because of the whole viewbot situation in China and fake viewers, all of that good stuff. But what we gotta talk about is the key demographic of 18 to 34. And this is really, like, what is so, like, astounding about the stats here. 45% of the average viewership fell into that demographic, which is the highest share that we have seen for any major traditional sports event. So, like, let's use a couple, like, marquee series. So, like, the World Series, like, on average with that demographic, they get 15%. The Super Bowl, 20%. NBA Finals, which was the highest at the time, was sitting at 24% in that demographic, and Overwatch League got 45%. Plus, you know, like, even, like, I think they said, like, from, like, ages, I can't remember the exact number, but, like, the younger audience, too, like, even before the 18 to 34 demographic, saw a very big spike as well. So, like, in regards to the key demos, Overwatch League was a massive success, and they were, like, the office for Overwatch League, they were expecting globally to get around 500,000 views, and ended up getting 861,000. So, you know, pretty damn good.
Yes, I will say this, the viewership was good. Lower than actually what I thought. I actually thought we would be higher. And I like most, in my mind, I don't include China for the exact reasons you said, bots, all that stuff. I would have thought we would have hit 500,000 without China, and we did not come close to that. And, you know, we're 150,000 away from hitting that 500,000 marker without China. I think the reason I really had high expectations was I really wanted them to blow it out of the water on ESPN so that season 2 was aired on ESPN2 instead of ESPN3, which would have skyrocketed the numbers even more if it was on ESPN2 over 3. But with these numbers, I don't think ESPN can justify having Overwatch League on ESPN2, and it will be relegated back to the ESPN3 or the online viewership, which is unfortunate. I thought that they should at least give them a shot on ESPN2, and they still might. It's just these numbers don't scream this is going to be a massive success for us on ESPN2. Right. So we'll see where we go from there. Now, granted, these viewership numbers have exceeded expectations since day one. So I mean, you look back to week 1 when we had 10 million viewership for the first week of Overwatch League. Like, that was insane. And to have, a total of close to 900, almost close to 1 million viewership worldwide on day 1 is just great numbers all around. Everyone's happy about it. Nobody's like, oh, we only got this many viewers, because they blew out of the water what their expectations were. So overall, massive success. I would have liked to have seen a little better for future endeavors, because I don't want to see frickin' Fortnite sneak up on us and start taking away some of the the opportunities Overwatch League should have. And I hate to say it, but Fortnite is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to viewership. As much as that game sucks. But it's one of those things where they just got to keep going. I'll be interested to see how the World Cup does in viewership, because I think that will be a really good determination of how much viewership you can expect next stage or next season, because you will have that time off where people are not all about Overwatch League. There's no Overwatch League to worry about, none of this, Then it's like randomly, hey, this big event's up, come watch us. And see how many people come back to it. So let's see. You're gonna start seeing more new people show up at the game because of everything that happened. So this was overall great. We did math way better than Leaker Boy. But it was great. I enjoyed it. I watched it on Twitch and on ESPN myself.
As did I. And really, esports on TV is still very new. It's not something we're going to see a whole lot. And I feel like at least part of it is one is definitely advertisement-wise, where in regards to TV, we didn't really get a whole lot of advertisements or TV ads or just plugs, or even just having Overwatch League maybe sponsor something else. But they did a better job on the online portion of it, where if you were on YouTube or on Twitch or Instagram, you would see more Overwatch League ads. So it's definitely still a bigger push on the streaming side of things. But who knows? This could definitely be something that kind of adjusts over time. But I feel like right now we're just not quite there yet. But these numbers are still really good. I'm still very happy with what we got. And if we're able to keep that sort of average in the key demos, it still leaves quite a bit of room for growth in the upcoming seasons ahead. And, maybe it is going to be the point where once we truly are global and traveling, that will be what draws more of the audience in as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on.
I mean, when you think, because you really have to start thinking of the Overwatch League as a sports organization. And where do most of all these sports organizations, where do they get the majority of their money? TV deals. Really, it's you saw in the NBA, God, what was it, 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago? I can never keep up with the NBA. But there was a huge spike in salary cap where there was just massive amounts of spending. That's because a new TV deal kicked in. Like the amount of money these TV companies shell out to, like, NFL, NBA, all those companies just to show them on TV is ridiculous. And that's where Overwatch needs to go to. They need to get, ESPN/Disney, ABC, Fox Sports would be one. FX would probably be another one. Like, you have these, you want these stations to bid for you. And I think this is them dipping their toes into it to see, especially because when they go international, they need to go with an organization that will be international, like that will be available. And I don't know if there's really any out there that can do this. Like, I don't know if there's US companies in, like, US television companies in Europe and Asia. You know what I mean? Like, where like people in Paris can watch the Overwatch League on TV and stuff like that. So that's what they'll really have to figure out. They may have to sign TV deals in each major country to show it, So all this just means more money for the teams, which means longevity, which means better product, so on and so forth.
Right. And with that being said, today is a pretty big day in regards to player contracts and things like that. So right now we have the sign-in window opening up for extensions for current Overwatch League players. It also opens up the opportunity for teams to do player trades. So Overwatch League teams have until September 9th whether to opt in players for their second year. So players not chosen will become free agents for Season 2 expansion teams, and that window for expansion teams only will open up on October 7th. Or it will be through October 7th, my bad. And then free agency just across the board begins on October 8th. So in the upcoming weeks, couple of months ahead, expect to start hearing a lot more in regards to player movements, player trades, people getting dropped, people getting signed. There's a lot going on, and, there's some definite big names in contenders that we could see popping up. We could see some very drastic changes in regards to underperforming Overwatch League rosters. So who knows what, like, Shanghai is going to do? Who knows what Seoul is going to do? Dallas could come back with a completely different looking team as well. Like, there's going to be a ton of movement, so we'll definitely keep you guys as up to date on this as possible. But, like, is there anyone in particular from, like, contenders or just kind of like around the block that you want to see get picked up outside of Sugar Free? Because I know that's going to be your top answer.
Damn it. Yeah, you had me. I mean, can I say Sugar Free? So I'll just go with this. Sugar Free is getting picked up. Enough said. I'm just trying to think of his name. I'm horrible with names for a lot of these. Panker from the Legion. Panker was probably one of the Legion, Gladiators Legion tanks in contenders with Panker and Gods is insane. Like, if you watch them play, they need to be in the Overwatch League. Now, the thing is, who's having tank turmoil? Oh yeah, that's Legion. Like, I could see Panker and Gods being like, okay, you two are now our two tanks.
Right.
And, getting rid of Fisher and stuff like that. So I can see them being picked up. I can see basically all of Fusion University getting picked up. And a lot of Team Envy I can see. I can see McGravy getting picked up as a tank. He's a good tank. Buds, he's a good enough DPS that he should be picked up. I don't think Tailspin will. Crimzo will get picked up. So a lot of these players are going to get picked up because a lot of teams have a lot of open space on their rosters. Not everyone has a full roster. So, I mean, off the top of my head, I think the Dallas Fuel only have like 8 people on their team. So they have 4 people that they can pick up. Well, McGravy, Buds, Crimzo, iShiny. There you go. Mm-hmm. We just picked up 4 people from our team. And that's how Contenders is going to be completely night and day different from next year. Like, Fusion University, their players are so good now, they may get picked clean, and they maybe in last place next year. So, yeah, those are the guys. I think Panker is outside of Sugar Free. Outside of Sugar Free, Panker's probably would be my number 1 get. And then Zachary. I'd put Gods up there. Who do you think? You follow Contenders way closer than me.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with my gut and go with 2 people that I follow the longest that are currently in Contenders. So, for one, from Fusion University, we have Who Are You, who, going back was on Lunatic High, my go-to team back in the day. And looking at Toronto Esports, I gotta go with Cruz. I was a big Reunited fan, or E-United fan, or Reunited, We United, however you want to say it. They went over, so many damn names as Reunited, and, that was just the one team that forever hashtag, prominence came to be, and then it got passed down to Runaway after Reunited disbanded, because, Reunited could never win the big one, and then Runaway could never win the big one. Maybe Contenders will be different this year, I don't know, but Cruz has been an absolute standout support player, really since day one, going all the way back to beta, so I'm hoping Cruz gets picked up for Boston, and I know Boston has 5 support players. I do not expect that to happen in Season 2. I'm expecting to drop at least 2 or 3 to make way for, some flex DPS, which they are in dire need of on the Uprising. But those are 2 that I'm definitely keeping an eye on, and I feel like both will definitely be making it.
See, the reason I didn't say Who Are You is because, so Who Are You, for those who don't know, is what we like to call a Genji god. Like, he's insane on Genji. And I think right now with Genji not really being in the meta in the Overwatch League, it might scare some people away. Not scare, but people are like, okay, well, we'll go after this person because they fit more into the playstyle of this meta. Mm-hmm. And maybe not go after Who Are You. Now, Who Are You deserves to be in the Overwatch League 100%, but I think being a Genji god is not as important as it once was. Kind of like being a Tracer god is not as important as it once was because Tracer's not in the meta.
Right.
So, I do like Who Are You. And the Zachary Who Are You DPS combo is just fun to watch. It's just fun. So if any team can snag both of them to be their 2 DPS, do it. So
yeah, my sinuses are driving me up the wall. Hopefully I will be alright. So let's go ahead, let's move on. Let's talk about the first finals. As I've been super nasally. Okay, so this one went in favor of the London Spitfire. Yes. Ugh. Got one right.
You beat me. Although I did pick Philly out of spite.
You did.
Because we couldn't both select London.
We could. But you chose not to.
How fun is that?
Well, we already had Spider disagreeing, so, there was somewhere. Regardless, so in Game 1, we opened up on Dorado, and Fusion come out swinging. They force an early Valkyrie out of Nuss. Prophet ends up falling into a poison mine after Carpe had dropped him pretty low. And, Gesture, he gets pulled into the Graphoton Surge, tries to fortify, isn't really able to escape, the clinch of death there, and London's defense just crumbles early on. We start to see some adjustments coming out to dive, and then this is where London starts to give Fusion some problems because the London defense starts to play more forward. They're just getting right in your face, and Fusion just, it takes some time for them to kind of adjust, and, eventually London falls back, they secure the high ground, they eventually get forced off by the Dragon Strike, and the Fusion end up demeching Fury, which allows Fusion to just back London up right into their spawn. And then going into the last phase, we saw Hotba eliminate Gesture with a self-destruct, which really opens things up for the Fusion, and they end up completing their attack in overtime. With on the Spitfire side, they started really good as well. Sato was the first to fall, which was kind of an ongoing theme throughout this series. And Neptuno gets clipped by a Dragon Strike, and then it's just off to the races. Gesture ends up chasing down the Fusion all the way back to their spawn door, and London just, zip straight to the second point and have, 4.5 minutes left to complete Dorado. And then the Fusion defense happened. So London ends up getting too aggressive on their attack, and eventually we see some swaps coming out where, they move to run in Brigitte as well as Hanzo, and then EQO just, works the flank side with the Hanzo, ends up finding Bedosian, and, EQO ends up getting his Dragon Strike, which ends up splitting the Spitfire, and basically Fusion are just able to hold on to map 1. But man, that has to be disheartening, having 4.5 minutes left, going into that last phase, and not being able to close out the map to go into a time-based round. That's very deflating if you are a London player, because Dorado is probably one of the hardest maps to attack. We've seen so many times, a team C9 in on Dorado, or just getting stopped right at the very end. So, you're already going in knowing that you have to complete the map, but to have that much time and it just kind of get, squandered, for lack of a better term, definitely hurts.
Yeah, no, you're right. Taking that last point on Dorado is so incredibly hard. There's so much advantage the defense has with all the twists and turns, the high grounds that they can get to, the flanking positions that they can get to. It's like you said, it's super hard. And I was watching this, I was like, okay, Philly is looking good. This was super demoralizing for the Spitfire to get that close and to not finish it. And just be like, oh, that was horrible. I'm like, okay, Fusion, we're looking good. We're going to do this. And then reality hits. But, in my mind, this was probably the best map that they played over both days. Mm-hmm. This was the one where they all kind of came to show up. And, EQO, the one thing I will say about Fusion through all of this, EQO performed very well during these 2 days. He probably performed the best out of anyone on the Fusion.
Yeah, him and Poco overall had the strongest performances, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And you even said this about Poco, though, is he was being less of a defensive diva when he needed to. Mm-hmm. And that did hurt the team a little.
Yeah. So map 2, so Fusion come in with the first map win, and we end up going to Oasis. You would think, after everything that we have seen this season, with Oasis being London's kryptonite, that maybe Fusion would go up 2-0 in Game 1. That did not happen, because Oasis was all London. So in round 1, the Fusion are running a comp that just lacks shield burst potential. Gesture is just an absolute menace dealing with the support line. And London builds the point up all the way to 99% before Fusion win a clean fight without using any ultimates, so that was actually a pretty big deal. So when they flipped the point, the Fusion had 5 ultimates at the ready, which is good, because, that gives them a little bit of breathing room, but, you still have to win and hold on to the point for, another minute 40 seconds minimum to build up to 100%. And this is where London adjusts. London adjustments in this series complete 180 from what we normally see. They had the aggression, every look that was thrown at them they adapted to, which was absolutely fantastic. And London switches to run in full dive. Bidoshin ends up getting knocked down by an Earthshatter, and then the Fusion do what the Fusion do. They end up getting aggressive, a little too aggressive, on the play, and Fury ends up using his mobility on the D.Va. He eats the Graviton Surge from EQO, and London ends up flipping the point to take that first round. In round 2, it's pretty much more of the same. Fury was getting directly in EQO's face. EQO was playing the Pharah on this point, and Fusion ended up coming back with 5 ultimates, and EQO goes for a barrage, and Gesture just bats him away with the Primal Rage. Bidoshin ends up out-sniping Carpe, Zenyatta v Widow, and that kind of comes into play in another map, which I thought was pretty funny, but that was a close-range battle. And Gesture is just not allowing Carpe to get any room to work with. Gesture was a constant nuisance on Carpe most of the time, and if it wasn't Gesture, it was Fury. And Fury had, like, one of the most ridiculous, like, stat lines of any off-tank we've seen this season, which we'll kind of get into stats in a little bit. But the moral of, like, the second map on Oasis was Carpe not having room to work with. And when Carpe isn't on, the Fusion aren't on. So much of their strats are built around Carpe performing, and, you know, I'll get into his numbers later, but Carpe did not have an easy go at all throughout all 7 maps that we saw between Game 1 and Game 2.
Yeah, no, this was a pretty, like, this was a pretty ugly map for the Fusion, all around. Like you said, Carpe was just being manhandled, and it's the Jonak effect. You know, like, people, when they finally started to figure out the Excelsior, it's like, okay, let's dive Jonak, take out their best player. Well, what were they doing? Let's dive Carpe, and Carpe wasn't able to do anything. Like you said, that I remember that Bidoshin out sniping Carpe when he's on Widow and Bidoshin's on Zen, and I was just like, okay, yeah. Now it's like, at that point, once I saw that, I was like, Carpe just can't do a thing. Like, there's nothing he can do to change this. And that was constant over the next 6 maps. Like, it was just one of those things where Carpe just couldn't be Carpe because London wouldn't allow Carpe to be Carpe. He was essentially a fish out of water.
Gasping for air, or in this case, space to actually snipe someone with.
Exactly.
Did not happen. Okay, so moving on to map 3, we went to Eichenwald, which throughout the playoffs was really one of Fusion's best maps. They kept coming out with triple tank, triple support. What do they do in the first finals? They're like, nah, man, we're running triple DPS. Maybe it's because, you know, they thought, like, Spitfire would have already known the play by now, because they basically used the same approach every time they were on this map. So they end up having... Okay, so this one opens up. They had Hotba, I believe, on this map. He was running Tracer. We open up, and Birdring finds EQO right off the bat, which forces a Resurrect from Neptuno. And Neptuno flies in, goes to res EQO, and then they end up losing Carpe. You know, Poco is able to eat a Dragon Strike, which definitely does help him out, and Hotba is being a little bit of a menace on Gesture, really just poking him down. Gesture, of course, being on the Winston, and EQO comes in big here, ends up getting a 3k, and Fusion take control of the payload. So, we see adjustments coming out for the Spitfire. They end up coming out with triple support, and Bidoshin is there to find Hotba. Birdring comes over the top, gets a pretty flashy, like, style, like, headshot on Carpe as he peeks over, and EQO on the Pharah just is not really cutting it. He's having a hard time finding an angle to rain his rockets down from. And Prophet, this is another situation where, you know, speaking of EQO, with the Pharah, barrages were not really his friend because, Gesture just kind of, like, leaps up, drops his barrier. Of course, the barrage hits the barrier, ends up splashing back in EQO's face. EQO is down and out. And Prophet comes in with a massive 3k and ends up dropping Neptuno, and then the cleanup is just all there for London, so the Fusion on their attack end up getting about halfway through the second phase, so not a good showing for the Fusion attack. So on London's side, early on, they definitely struggled early. Birdring was eating a lot of direct rockets from EQO, so a lot of good pressure from EQO on the defense here. And Fusion end up dropping Gesture, which allows them to play it more aggressive. And then we see, like, this back and forth contest on a point, and it's eventually the Spitfire that come out ahead due to the frontline war being won by the Spitfire. And then, securing the payload, London switches to full dive, and Prophet ends up finding dash reset after dash reset, ends up dropping Sado, but Dojin is on the Tracer, and he's gunning straight for Carpe. Carpe's on the Widow, and they're, like, by the gates, basically, like, behind the gates in the health pack room. And Bedosian goes for, the Kobe, doesn't quite land it, Carpe gets out, but still gets gunned down. So Carpe completely out of the fight while all this is going on, and then Prophet just on the point is just finding all the picks he needs. He drops EQO, he drops Neptuno, and London finish out the map. And that game, and man, like, Prophet time and time again, like, he's played the Hanzo, he's played Brigitte, we've seen him on Junkrat. Every character we saw Prophet on, he did absolutely amazing. He put in a strong performance across the board. That's one of the reasons why he did win the MVP. But, when you go into the playoffs, you cannot get stopped midway through a map. Like, you have to close it out. And not doing that just put London in a prime position to just put that final nail in the coffin, at least in the first set.
Yeah, the story of this map and the biggest takeaway I took, and it's something that happens every map after this, is you will see yourself, oh, Sado's dead. Oh, what's Sado doing? Oh, why is Sado, why... What? Sado was channeled his inner Frankie and was just like jumping in, going in, and just being ultra aggressive, which is fine if your team is used to that. And Sado is not someone who I always consider to be ultra aggressive. Mm-hmm. And it's like he changed his play style against London Spitfire, and his team just didn't know how to handle it. Like, Sado was constantly out of position, constantly just couldn't be healed, and made the team down one. And it happened in every single map from this one. Like, I really didn't pay attention to it in the first two maps. But from this one, it first stuck out, and then every map after that, I was just like, Jesus, what is he doing? Like, and we talked about this in our staff lounge. Like, Sado just, we don't know what was going on. Like, he was just getting antsy. So Sado was not doing good. Carpe was not doing good. And Prophet was being, the typical I'm not an actual all-star good. But, the story and the story of all of this is, I'm not going to give Prophet and Birdring the benefit of the DPS really blew off. They did good. But the story of all these maps is Gesture and Fury. Mm-hmm. Like, Gesture and Fury won the London Spitfire, the finals. So no question about it.
Oh, absolutely. Like, so much was opened up because of the front line. So looking at game one, kind of like as a whole, like, we look at the Fusion, and only two of their players finished with a positive kill to death ratio. Boombox finished with a +1. Hotba led the team with +3. We talked about how important, the DPS duos were going to be in here. Who was going to get the upper hand? Who was better in this meta? And in game one, between EQO and Carpe, they had a combined 79 deaths between them. They led the Fusion in deaths in game one. When you look at the Spitfire counterparts, so Prophet and Birdwing, they died 49 times. That's a pretty big difference between the two. And Prophet finished with a plus 32 kill to death because it was 48 and 16. And then you had Fury, who also put up some pretty monster numbers. He went 41 and 15 with a plus 26. So, all in all, it's pretty good. And, we forgot to talk about Volskaya, which was the fourth map.
Yes.
The Volskaya... Here's what you need to know about Volskaya. And this is all you need to know about Volskaya. Watch Point B and watch Prophet.
Yep, that's... Watch that, you're gonna see why Spitfire won.
Right, so there were two instances on their attack on Point B where Prophet... The first time, he's on Hanzo, and he nearly single-handedly takes a point. He was basically like the lone sniper, and he's cleaning up the respawns, but he eventually gets overwhelmed. But he gets
I think Winston came in or something.
Yeah, eventually he gets backed off, and then he switches to McCree. Or was it Tracer? I'm trying to remember.
Tracer.
It was Tracer.
He popped off on Tracer.
Yeah, he ends up getting a 5k on Tracer, which sealed the deal. But it was just the most nonchalant looking play, because it's just I say I'm gonna blink in here, I'm gonna one clip this person, I'm gonna recall out, I'm gonna go back in, engage, drop another person, hit a stick on the tank, and just it's my work here is done. But if he would have closed out that map on the Hanzo play, that would have already been one of the greatest plays that we've seen. But then for him to just do it again on the next fight, no less, it was just one of the wildest maps I have ever seen in Overwatch. And in regards to actual entertainment value, that map is definitely the standout of the grand finals.
Yeah, that was a great one. Now, when he popped off on Tracer, it was kind of a mix between skill and luck. So, what happened is he blinked. I remember he blinked across to take out, I think it was Neptuno on Mercy for the billionth time. And then he recalled and came back across to the other platform. Well, when he recalled, the Carpe was on Tracer right in front of him. He recalled a foot behind Tracer. That's the perfect. You're oh snap! Here's a guy I can kill too. I just happened to recall in the perfect position. So he took out Carpe real quick, and then hops down and takes out the other tanks. It was insane. How you're just oh, he took out Neptuno. That's not noteworthy because he died 14 times on this map. And then just to recall right into the perfect position was just out of this world. It like you said, the entertainment value for that map was off the chain. Great way to end day one on ESPN.
Absolutely. So moving ahead to the second day for game 2. So we opened up on everyone's favorite map, Junkertown.
Bum, bum, bum.
So Fusion, they come out, they opt to run the pirate ship. So they have Boombox. He is on the Bastion, of course. I mean, it's a Bastion episode. We got to talk about Bastion. And Sato's barriers are just getting bursted down immediately. Not really the best vote of confidence if you are a Bastion in this situation, right? But luckily, Sato comes in and he ends up finding Bdoshin early on, so that forces out the early res from Nuss. But Bdoshin, he retaliates, he hooks Sato in, gets the pick, and Prophet's Dragon Strike just cuts straight through the payload and ends up dropping Boombox. So Boombox ends up getting brought back into the fight, and then Ikiro comes in on the Hanzo, gets the 3k, and a lot of that was built up off of the clutch res from Neptuno. So, there were times where Neptuno came in really big, but there were definitely some times where he was the first to fall. So it was kind of a mixed bag overall. And We see Poco come in with the Pokebomb, as he usually does, which allows Fusion to continue to push forward. Fury kind of answers right back, ends up finding Neptuno and Boombox with his own self-destruct. And then this is where we see Boombox switch off of the Bastion. He ends up going over to the Roadhog, looking for more shield burst, because, it is a pulled pork type of map. And there's a Hanzo battle going on between Prophet and EQO, and both of them are looking to use their Dragon Strike. Prophet uses his last, and he dies mid-animation with his Dragon Strike to EQO's Dragon Strike, so a definite feels bad moment, and Spitfire end up getting too aggressive and get punished for it. But, kind of like going into the last phase, Gesture ends up holding the Fusion right into a Dragon Strike from Prophet, which rewards the Spitfire with a 5k. Like, it was just a massive play overall. And Neptuno had a really hard time. He was getting under pressure by Birdring on Widow. And EQO gets staggered pretty bad. Poco ends up getting split off from the team. Carpe gets, caught in the backline. There was, a lot of disconnect later on for the Fusion on their attack. And Sato basically has to force himself onto the point, but gets taken out immediately. So, again, their attack at times looks really good, and then they just kind of... London adjusts, and then they just close the door. And for the Spitfire, you know what? It didn't start out the best, because Prophet falls really early, but they do manage to hook in Boombox. And then Neptuno falls, and then the Fusion just start to unravel at that point. But the Fusion end up forcing out an ult, which, is good. I mean, yes, they lose the high ground, but, taking out an ult for nothing is always, pretty good. And Poco finds a pretty big Pokebomb, where he ends up catching both of the London supports in the health pack corridor, so they just get, wedged in. They had nowhere to go. It was, honestly one of the best placements we've seen, especially on that map in particular. But what does London do? They strike right back. They get a 3k Dragon Strike, and they have, 4 minutes left to not even push, the payload halfway in the third phase. And the Fusion, they get some breathing room. The first defense they hold onto, but, it's very short-lived. The Dragon Strike comes in from London, which ends up splitting the defense. It finds Boombox, and then Fury is just there to find the eliminations that they need, and Spitfire takes the first map. So, Neptuno at times, he comes in clutch, and then he gets, caught out. So it's been, a mixed bag. But, looking at his counterpart, going in, we were expecting an interesting Mercy duel, because you have Neptuno, who is, the aggro Mercy, who comes in very clutch with the reses, versus Nuss, who, position-wise, is probably, the survivalist in regards to all of the Mercies in the league, and we definitely saw that come into play, because even when the Fusion were running double Sniper, the Snipers were not able to shoot down Nuss at all. When Nuss died, it was usually to a Pokebomb, in most instances.
Yeah, I mean... the two things, you pointed out, the two things, if you really want to go back and watch this, look at the Pokebomb placements and look at Gesture. I'm not even going to talk about Prophet. Look at Gesture pulling people into the Dragon Strike from Prophet. The Orisa play that occurred on this map makes all Orisa mains hopeful. The way Gesture, and even Sato to some degree, but mainly Gesture, was playing Orisa was nothing we've ever seen before. Really, this entire series, the way he played Orisa was nothing we'd ever seen before. But the Fusion made so many stupid mistakes. Like you said, Neptuno, his aggressiveness came back and bit him in the ass. I mean, I get it. Gesture and Prophet went for the combo to get the 5k. You should never have a 5k to a Dragon Strike unless you're sucked in by Zarya.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, there's always outs. And they just played stupid, and it seemed like they were playing with like a frustration on their back from the previous day still, and things where they were tilted. They were playing like they were tilted, and it showed. And Spitfire took advantage of that. Gesture and Prophet mainly took advantage of that, but Nuss was just like the calm and steady, like you said, like the playing conservative, the one who's like, well, I can't heal them if I'm not here type mentality. And yeah, he was clutch for this. Like the Spitfire, after this map, I knew the Spitfire were gonna win because they were just running on all cylinders after this map.
Absolutely, and really, on the second map, which was Lijiang Tower, like, the Fusion looked all out of sorts. So, for starters, Fusion give up the initial cap for free, basically. Spitfire just goes straight to the point, and the Fusion don't even really try to contest. So, nope. With that, Gesture dives the backline, but, he doesn't walk away with the kill, which is good for the Fusion in that case, but Prophet ends up coming in over the top with a barrage, and Spitfire end up holding strong as Gesture is just, he's zoning out Carpe and Neptuno in one of the side rooms. So, it's a 1v2 in that situation. And yes, he's not getting a kill, but he's taken 2 members out of the fight. So it's a 4v5 with the advantage going to the Spitfire. Sato, again, kind of gets split off from his team. He gets punished for it. And, that happened multiple times throughout this series. Carpe ends up trying to go for, the sneaky bat cap. That does not happen because Prophet ends up pulling back to contest him and scare him off. And the Fusion don't get anyone to the point. So round 1 was 100-0 in favor of the Spitfire. So we end up going to Gardens. And the Fusion bring out the Widowmaker and the Pharah. And Birdrain just right off the bat is just... He just takes control. He ends up getting a 3k, and the Spitfire get the initial cap off of that. Sato ends up getting separated from his team, so he's the first to fall again. And Birdrain is just going uncontested on a Widow in this map. Prophet ends up finding Carpe, but ends up getting domed by Boombox. So, a little bit of payback there from, it happened the other way. So... Gesture, again, pressure Carpe. That's all he's doing. He's just trying to keep Carpe out of the fight, not letting him get away. Anytime he tries to grapple away, Gesture is right there to follow, just leaps right back in his face. But Carpe eventually is able to escape and finds an angle, and he comes in with a pretty big 2k, which is enough for the Fusion to turn the fight around and flip the point, but it was at 99%. So again, in dire straits here, but at least they're starting to build some percentage. But Neptuno ends up getting stuck with a pulse bomb. Actually, Prophet ends up getting 2 pulse bombs in, this fight. So he ends up sticking Carpe first, and Birdrain ends up finding, back-to-back headshots, which results in 2 more eliminations. And then Prophet already has his pulse bomb up again. He sticks Neptuno, takes him out of the fight. Sato is just dropped by micro missiles, and then that secures it for the Spitfire. So, so much of it was just Birdrain just not being contested, or just Fusion looking like they gave up. It seems like as soon as Carpe was shut down in this series, Fusion didn't have another answer. But, it wasn't until Kane's Row where we kind of saw one of the backup strats being pulled from the Fusion, but at that point, it was far too late.
Yeah, it was just, like you said at the beginning, the Fusion just didn't, I don't think they really quite knew what was going on. This was probably one of the quickest, maps I've seen, combined for both maps. You're looking at under 7 minutes total for Lijiang Tower. All of it. That's insane. You have an entire map series under 7 minutes. I think usually on a King's Row like the next map, I think just the first attack took like 10, 12 minutes. So like the Spitfire was just taking advantage, and like you said, Birdring went off on Widowmaker at the beginning, and just nothing was being countered. Like he wasn't being countered at all. He had free reign to do whatever he wanted. Sato was out of place again for like the billionth time. It's just it looked like a quick play match when people were just running in, doing whatever they want, splitting up. Like it was just not coordinated whatsoever. And it showed in the, 100-0, and then basically 100-0 for the second map too. I mean, Fusion got a couple ticks, but it was basically 100-0 on the second map as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, so we go to Kane's Row, which was the third and final map, because this one did result 3-0 in favor of London. And, London is on, the map that is, kind of with where their team is from. So, that's a thing, so not rigged. But they close it out on England in Kane's Row. So on the Fusion attack, they actually complete their attack on this one, but unfortunately It comes in overtime. So we see Boombox getting hooked in and just taken out of the fight by Birdring, who gets the headshot. But Bdoshin gets hooked in, and Prophet, with that third eye, comes in with a Riptire, finds an elimination, and gets the D-Mech. So saved Bdoshin's skin on that one. But the Fusion basically just ease their way towards the point. The Dragon Strike basically keeps its Spitfire up against the wall, so they're not really able to engage until that's done with. So, we see some control starting to get on the first point. And the closer respawns give the Fusion that man advantage, and they're able to secure the payload. So Gesture, he looks to dive, and he Mario stomps Neptuno, takes him out of the fight, but the Fusion are able to retaliate. And, there's a sequence here where, like, Carpe ends up being the first one to fall, and Neptuno gets zoned out from being able to get the Resurrect off. So, London, like, no matter if they were just, like, finding Neptuno, if they weren't doing that, they were preventing him from getting the res off, which is absolutely huge, because then you're still in that 5v6 situation. And Gesture, he pulls out the Primal Rage, ends up finding Sato, which pushes the Fusion back. And then this is where Bdoshin and Carpe come into play, right? So we're in the hotel, and Bdoshin's like, you know what, Carpe? Let's settle this. So it's Zenyatta versus Widow inside close quarters, and it's pretty even. It's pretty back and forth. But no, Bdoshin eventually has second thoughts. But man, I wanted to see that 1v1 play out. I wanted to see Bdoshin take it, because like based off of what we had saw from Carpe, I felt like Bdoshin would have taken it. But Carpe ends up, coming out. He finds Prophet's Riptire, and this is where Fusion start to move the payload. So Spitfire, they get a little bit aggressive. They invest heavily. They end up using 3 ultimates, which is enough to stop the Fusion's progress. And EQO tries to, strike back and retaliate with a Dragon Strike of his own, only to be met by Transcendence. But the problem is, like, the Spitfire support ults were forced early, and Fusion end up surviving through this, and they end up winning the fight. It's pretty, like inch and claw type methodology here. They're just able to survive in the long run and eventually get the kills. And, that brings us to the final point. And it's a Fusion now who are the aggressors, but it's looking good. Nusk gets taken out of the fight, but Fury ends up coming in big with the self-destruct, ends up finding 2, which brings us to about, 20 seconds left on the clock. And EQO opens things up by taking down Prophet, and Carpe wins the Widow 1v1. So finally, a big moment for him. But the Spitfire respawns start to trickle in, but, it's just not enough. Fusion complete in overtime. And on the Spitfire side, we see Prophet, looking for the flank, but Poco ends up finding him, Gesture also falls, so, an early reset coming out from the Spitfire. But, early on, there was a lot of flashiness. Bedosian just gets chased down. Carpe threads the needle and finds a headshot on Birdbrain through the sign, which was amazing. But, we see the Spitfire look to Dragon Strike behind the Fusion. But EQO basically, pushes forward and just... He takes care of both of the Spitfire tanks with the Storm Arrows, so a lot of burst damage coming out of there. So we see the changes coming out from the Spitfire, who opt to run the 303. So we see triple tank, triple support. Sato's the first to fall, and the cleanup is just all there for the Spitfire. And then this is finally where we see the switch coming out from Carpe. Carpe looks to counter the 303 with the Doomfist, and he just styles on the Spitfire, ends up getting the 3K. And then the Zaryas just, kind of take control. So the Graviton Surge comes in from Birdbrain, and the Fusion just get floored. And the Fusion look to answer back with the Graviton Surge on the next fight, but what they don't know is Gesture is waiting on the side, waiting with that Flank Shatter, which gets the best of them, and that secures the second point. And, Gesture just moves ahead, gets to the spawn door, and the Fusion charge in only for Sato to drop first. EQO gets demeched, and the Spitfire just brawl out to complete the map with 110. And then to close it out, we saw a little bit of the bamboozle play from the Spitfire. So Spitfire come out with 303. They have Birdbrain waiting in the spawn room. He waits for his cue. He goes Widowmaker. So, shades of that LA Gladiators versus London Spitfire match where, London kind of got styled on at that point, but Sato is the first to fall again, and Neptuno is just zoned out from the res, and that was pretty much it. I just thought it was very fitting, though, that, when we look back, King's Row initially was, the defining moment. Okay, it's how is London going to react after the bamboozle play that everyone saw, the merry-go-round. And then for them to implement it into their time bank, I thought was very smart. You wouldn't expect it, but, it was kind of a culmination of all these things just coming together, because King's Row was the moment that things turned around for the Spitfire. And, they ended up winning, 18 of their last 21 maps. So, all things were looking up for London.
Yeah, it's just... All right, first off, I'm going to say this now because I have to, and I say it all the time. God, I hate 3-3 comp. I hate the GOATS comp. It, never works. It really doesn't. Yes, it worked this time, kind of, sort of. But, I mean, coming into this map, you knew Spitfire would win. You just did. The Fusion just didn't have it. Like you said, the flank Reinhardt play by Gesture was just okay, really? Did he just do that? Okay, he did. Carpe played probably his best map, and that's not saying much, but he probably played his best match. When he went on Doomfist, he kind of, was making a difference, and it wasn't working out for them. And you thought, okay, maybe if Carpe has finally turned a corner, he can, do something, but it just didn't work out. We just saw a lot more Orisa play, which we saw a constant of. And I know it's just because of the maps, but it was nice to see those kind of plays, those kind of characters played. But man, it was just, you just saw it, and you knew once London Spitfire got the control, got point C with time to spare, and only had to get one tick on point A, that it was just okay, yeah, this is game over. There's nothing anyone can do now. So, yeah, it was unfortunate, but the wrong Philadelphia Fusion showed up, and the right London Spitfire showed up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Carpe can't body Birdring if Carpe isn't even in the fight.
Exactly.
So looking at the second set, Fury was the one leading the way in the lobby with eliminations. He posted 81. Prophet wasn't too far behind him. He posted 79 elims. And, kind of like looking at the Fusion side, it didn't look so hot. So the only Spitfire player not to post, more eliminations in the Fusion in the game was Nuss. like everyone was just on point. But we talked about the survivability of the front line, and Fury in that set on those 3 maps only died 6 times. Nuss fared very well as well. He had only died 9 times. And we talked about the damage of flex supports and how much that was going to come into play. So Badosian and Boombox both finished second respectively in damage on their team. So Badosian finished with 47,000 damage compared to Boombox, who had 42,000. But Badosian, he actually did pretty good on this team. He even had more kills than Birdring in that set by, plus 10. But all in all, it was curious because this was the only one of the few times where Neptuna was actually out-damaged by another Mercy. So, even Neptuna wasn't, going as aggro in this map, which, was kind of a good thing, but, it also didn't help either. But, man, but you talk about Prophet, and in this set alone, this was ridiculous to me. So, in these 3 maps, on average, per 10 minutes, Prophet was earning 6.6 ultimates, which is more than a full ultimate more than any other player in any playoff match this season. He had 4 different heroes where he had played more than 20 minutes of playtime on, which was also more than any other player. He posted the best player ratings on Hanzo, on Brigitte, on Pharah, on Junkrat, and here we were thinking, EQO, this was going to be his meta. He was looking pretty damn good going into the grand finals. And, for one reason or another, whether it was Carpe just getting zoned out, or Sado getting focused or just punished for positional errors, Prophet, by far had the better play compared to EQO. And what's also crazy is Prophet recorded at least a quarter of his team's kills in 5 of the 6 playoff matches that they played. And then you had Carpe, who we mentioned got silenced. So, in regards to kill-to-death ratios, for, the grand finals, Carpe's worst performance was in the grand finals. And his player rating from Winston's Lab in match 1 was the worst of any match that he has played this season. So, all in all, it just comes to show, if you take Carpe out of the equation, things just unravel for the Fusion. And, I thought, when we saw, the Doomfist come in from Carpe, that was, the last-ditch effort. That was their Hail Mary. Yeah. And it worked okay. He did come in, and I think he got, a 3K, right off the bat. But, London, time and time again, was able to adapt to what the Fusion were doing. And they didn't necessarily have to do it all that often, but it was more point by point, because usually they have set plays or set comps that they like to run depending on where they are in the map. But it just shows you the amount of preparation that London put in. They knew what Fusion were going to be running, and whatever was thrown at them, they adapted to and they overcame. So without question, the Spitfire looked like the better team. I don't want to say, the Fusion gave up midway through the series, but, after just, giving up the point for free on Lijiang Tower, it definitely felt that way.
Yeah, I mean, and I was complaining about this in the staff lounge again, is if you watch the Fusion talk, or lack thereof, at the press conference after the first day, you could just see defeat in all their faces. And that was just after the first day. Mm-hmm. You could just see, that they were just crushed. and there was nothing anyone could do about it. They wouldn't answer questions. They wouldn't look people in the eye. They wouldn't look at anybody. It's just I don't want to say they got tilted, but the Spitfire got in their heads, and it allowed them to get owned by the Spitfire. Like, I don't want to say the Fusion gave up on day 2, but they kind of did. Like, not like they gave up as a team. It's just a lot of them had given up mentally, I think. So it wasn't even close day 2. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that Spitfire were going to win the first series, and there would not be a third series.
Yeah, so, it's important to note, like, for London, like, this was the only team that made the playoffs that had a losing record in the second half of the season. In Stage 3 and Stage 4, the Spitfire went 9-11. And, we saw in the quarterfinals where, they were up against the Gladiators, and Gladiators, they were looking pretty good, right? Like, and then we saw the Bamboozle play, and then things just turned around. So after that Kings Row map against the Gladiators, in the final 21 maps, London went 18-2-1. And, Prophet, he won MVP. And, you look at the stats, he led a lot of stat categories. So in regards to eliminations, he had 9.14 per 10 minutes, which was top. He had 3.31 deaths per 10 minutes, which was second overall. His kill-to-death ratio was 3.25, also first. He earned the most ultimates per 10 minutes at 5.74. And then his kill-to-death per 10 minutes was 5.84. Like, that was also the top. Like, it didn't matter who he was on. Prophet was making an impact. And yes, part of that is, the space being opened up by Gesture or, Carpe being out of the equation. But regardless, like, when you're in that position, you still have to make the plays. And Prophet came through time and time again. And, it made me so happy because going in that second half of the season, Prophet was playing a lot of different things. And that was a player that was getting a lot of flack from the community about who he was playing. But, like, after the performance that we saw from Prophet, everyone just kind of like, yeah, okay. Like, this kid's for real. So, like, didn't matter who he was on. Like, you can put Prophet on just about anything, and, like, he's top 3, top 5.
Oh, yeah, no. Prophet went off. No, Prophet won MVP, and I don't think he should have won MVP. I am hashtag Gesture's my real MVP, but the non-flashy character players tend to not win the flashy awards. Like, you don't see offensive linemen winning the NFL MVP. Like, but, Prophet went off. Prophet took his game to a whole new level from Stage 3 in the playoffs. And, it's like everyone wanted to crown, and me and you included, wanted to crown New York Excelsior as the champion before the playoffs started. Because, they had just been so dominant. But it just goes to show you how much one single hero change or 2 hero changes can flip the whole league on its head. Like, New York went from, oh, they're going to win, to, oh, they're sandbagging in Stage 4, to, oh, they lost the first round of their playoffs. Oh, okay. What's going on here? Maybe they weren't really sandbagging. Like, one hero change can define a team. And I guess the Hanzo changes changed up the meta enough for the Spitfire to really just take advantage of everything. So, it's good on them, good on Prophet, good on Gesture. They're going to be hard to beat, but the thing is when the next season starts, who knows what hero changes we'll have. Like, Hanzo may not be in the meta. Symmetra may be meta. No? All right.
No.
No,
not buying. I'm not buying it.
Symmetra will not be meta. But, you know, who knows? May might be meta. Sniper May. Or, you know, something of that nature. Changes to McCree. Changes to Torbjorn. You know, stuff like that. So, but London is for, you know, they're the champions. Everyone has to beat them to prove their worth now, because Spitfire has that paycheck and has that trophy, and nobody else does.
Yep, they have that $1 million.
Yeah.
You know, just a small amount of change, you know?
Yeah. God, what was it? They went out to some crazy fancy dinner that night, and the owner of the team was like, "We may need to win next year to pay for this dinner." I'm just like, fair enough, because you do take out like 30 people.
Well, it didn't help that the hurricane went down the way that they did either. You know, maybe that could have helped alleviate some of the expenses, but you know, we saw how that played out.
Right.
But anyways, you know, we're getting to that point. We need to head out. So let's go ahead. Let's close out the show. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best ways to do that is to leave us a positive review over on iTunes. We're always looking for ways to improve the show. We also have Overwatch Recall. That is our basically like Overwatch content / podcast directory. So, you know, there's a list of like Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro podcasts over on our website. And then every Sunday we release episodic listings of all the latest content just across the distributors. So be sure to follow Overwatch Recall. We're on Twitter at OW Recall. We just released our first episode where I had interviewed Thornrain and Kyle Wynn from the Blackwatch Report, which is part of the High Noon podcast, but it's their Path to Pro podcast, so be sure to check that out. And then moving forward, that will be released bi-weekly on Mondays. So, you know, of course, like if you're looking for the podcast directory, that's on our website, owlnshow.com/owrecall. And then if you want to find the weekly listings, you can find that at owlnshow.com/weekly recall. But Edinar, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know where they can go ahead and you know, reach us.
All right. Well, you can reach us on email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter at hndoverwatch. Our website, owlnshow.com. Go there, check out all the fun stuff. We are streaming presently on Twitch, twitch.tv/owlnshow. We are Twitch affiliates, so come make sure to subscribe, get to our Twitch channel, unlock our networks, harass us in chats. We do have shows 3 nights a week. So Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network. Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have this show, Heroes Never Die. And then on Thursdays, we have the Back Cap at 7 p.m. Pacific. And then host streams, for the most part, go on Fridays and Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, maybe 7 p.m. Pacific. Me and Totem played some arcade, caused some Mercy Bastion shenanigans this past weekend. It was good times. You can also join us on Discord at discord.me/OWLNshow. And then you can also watch us on YouTube. Our YouTube channel, Overwatch League Network, is out there. You make sure to go subscribe to us so we get our custom URL and we don't have to, you know, use random numbers, and it'll be easier to find. We do have all our podcast episodes up there, and then top plays and other videos like all the hamsters videos that Spider put out. That's hamsters with a P.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can reach me on Twitter at Edinar Overwatch and on Twitch at twitch.tv/EdinarOW. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I am over on Twitter. That is at Little Blue Bird at Tumbly Drunk CTR. And if I'm live on Twitch, as you guys all know, it's usually here on the podcast channel 3-4 nights a week. Usually, I mean, we're getting a little bit better with the host rate, so on average 3.5. Like, maybe I'll show up for like half a stream and then I'll be like, yeah, that's enough, depending on like how many shenanigans I get into, because for one, you can get into too many and then I just feel like I've done my course, you know, for like the week, and then I have to recharge to prepare for the next week of shenanigans. But that's besides the point. We're going to go ahead and we're going to close it out. So thank you so much again for listening to Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 122. I am your host, Totally Drunk, joined by Edinar, and we will see you guys back next week. Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Heroes Never Die. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HND Overwatch and join us on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show.